Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into Daniel chapter 12, which is the last chapter in the book of Daniel. I already did a video on Daniel 11. It was a pretty lengthy, in-depth breakdown. Lord willing, like I said, I'll consolidate all this into a playlist on the channel so that you can access it. And maybe I'll create a backup channel where I just store these breakdowns, because you know how YouTube goes. They just start taking out videos, and if they take down your channel, then everything goes with it. So, but anyway, in Daniel the 12th chapter, when you read from Daniel chapter 10, when the Lord came down to explain and expound on the vision that Daniel received and explain it to him, in Daniel 11, it goes into all of that, where Daniel is being, the vision that Daniel had of the time of the 6 Syrian wars and so on and so forth, that's being explained on to him. And then carrying on into Daniel 12, the Lord is still explaining certain parts of the vision that pertain to the end days, the end times, and sometimes in between to Daniel. So you'll notice that as we go through Daniel chapter 12, there are a series of, there are different time periods that are actually mentioned in this chapter. And it's key for you to be able to identify those time periods, or else you'll think it's all talking about one time and you'll be confused. So Daniel chapter 12 verse 1, the time of the end. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Now this time here is talking about the time period of the end, the time that we're living in now. Okay, and more specifically, the time of Jacob's trouble, because that's going to happen in our generation. So when it says at that time shall Michael stand up, Michael being one of the archangels, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. Remember that the Lord is speaking to Daniel. So he's letting him know thy people would be the people of Daniel, and Daniel was an Israelite. And there shall be a time of trouble, which is referring to Jacob's trouble, the same trouble that is also referenced by Jeremiah in the book of Jeremiah, the 30th chapter and the 7th verse. As a matter of fact, that actually it's a parallel, it goes hand in hand with this precept, because in Jeremiah 30 and 7, which let me just pull it up real quick since I'm already mentioning it. 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is, meaning it's incomparable to any other time, because that's how devastating the time of Jacob's trouble is going to be. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. That is the trouble that is referred to here in Daniel chapter 12. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And that's why you're going to have the Michael stand up. And it's not going to be just the archangel Michael. Of course, you're going to have Yahweh Shai and the rest of the other angels as well. But it mentions him by name here because he is referenced as the great prince that standeth for the Israelites. So continuing, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. So what that means is that this time of trouble that is about to take place, known as Jacob's trouble, is going to be a time unlike any other, meaning no other time in history. That's why it says, since there was a nation, even to that same time, meaning from creation up until the time of Jacob's trouble. There's going to be nothing throughout the creation period to the time of Jacob's trouble that's going to compare to how devastating the time of Jacob's trouble is going to be. And at that time, thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So, of course, you're going to have the elect. That thy people here, remember, it's talking about the Israelites, but it goes a step further to specify who amongst the Israelites. That's why it mentions everyone that is found written in the book, i.e. the book of life, those that are meant to be delivered. And that's really talking about the elect. Now, in the time of Jacob's trouble, of course, the elect are going to be taken care of and provided for. But the ultimate deliverance is going to be right at the end of Jacob's trouble, when the nuclear missiles, fly, when the war goes nuclear, and it's time for that lake of fire. That's going to be that main deliverance where all the elect are going to be delivered. Verse 12 or verse 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Now, when it says sleep here in the dust of the earth, that's not talking about actually being asleep. What it means is those that are dead. Nobody in real life digs up into the earth to go to sleep every night. They dig a 6 feet hole and they go in there and they sleep every night, and every morning they wake up out of the ground. Nobody does that. So for somebody to be sleeping in the dust of the earth, that means they're buried. So what it's talking about here are people that are dead. So in other words, many of the dead are going to awake, meaning they're going to come back to life. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So in this time period, what's going to be taking place is when we're nearing the ending of Jacob's trouble, you're going to have at that point Israelites, some that are of the elect that are going to be alive, some that are of the elect that are already going to be dead. They're going to be in the spirit world. You're also going to have some Israelites that are not of the elect that are going to be alive, and some Israelites that are not of the elect that are going to be in the spirit world. And at that point, when the Lord comes back, he is going to bring people that are already dead out of their graves. And there's actually a precept on this going into, do I remember this right? John 5. Let's see. Maybe not John, maybe First John. Can I remember this? First John. Let's see. It might be in the book of First John. Let me just. Yeah, I think it's in the book of First John, the 5th chapter. And it should be right around maybe 1920. No, not 1920. 5. All right, let me just look it up in Google. Resurrection of Life, book of First John. Goodness, man, can't just find one precept. All right, you know what? Let's do it this way. Shall judge. I believe there's a verse in here that's worded this way. How many instances? 179. Let's go down and try to find an account in the book of John. Come on. Where are you? Resurrection. Dead. There it is. The book of John, chapter 5, verse 20. There we go. This is John chapter 5, verse 24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on me, or on him that hath sent me, that hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. Where we at? Yeah. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself. Now when we come down, verse 28, marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil onto the resurrection of damnation. So what's going to happen during this time period is you're going to have the elect that are already dead. They're going to come back to life, and they're going to have their bodies changed, and they're going to be beamed up, right? As it says in the book of 1 Thessalonians 4:16, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Hamashiach shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. This is also going to be happening. Okay, so you're going to have the elect that are already dead. They're going to be brought back to life, and they're going to be changed. Okay, at the same time, you're going to have other individuals brought back from the dead to endure their judgment. Okay, which is going to be that final judgment, that second death. Okay, and then when it talks about and some to shame and everlasting contempt, the Israelites that are not of the elect that die on this side, they're going to be reborn in the kingdom of heaven. But when they come back in the kingdom of heaven, that is when they're going to experience that shame and everlasting contempt, because they're gonna remember how they lived in this time. They're gonna remember the things that they did, the behaviors that they did. It's kind of like if you did some very wicked deeds before you came into the truth, how you feel when you remember, because you didn't know any better. But now that you know what's actually right from wrong according to the scriptures, and you look back and think about how you used to do things that were actually wrong according to the scriptures, you feel that shame, that unworthiness, because of how you used to live. Well, that for us, the Lord blessed us to have that change, that realization now, that renewal now. But for the wicked Israelites, they're not going to have that until the kingdom. That's when they're going to have a clear mind, and then they're going to be able to look back and they will be ashamed of how they lived on this side. That's that shame and everlasting contempt, which that feeling is going to last for a long period of time, but eventually they'll be all right again, because the Lord is merciful. Okay. Verse 3, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So they that be wise and they that turn many to righteousness is talking about the elect. And how so? Because when you deal with the scriptures, it tells you how the 144,000, which are the teachers, there's a song that they learned that nobody else could learn. And that's really the truth, the full, correct, and proper understanding of the Bible, the doctrine of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. That is what makes the elect, specifically the 144,000, but the elect, that is what makes them wise. And that is how they turn many to righteousness, by teaching the word of righteousness. And then the other elect members hearing that and repenting and turning from their wicked ways. And as a result of that, they're going to be changed, and that's why it likens them onto shining Okay, as the brightness of the firmament and as the stars of heaven. Meaning that they're gonna be raised up into a high position. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So once again, dealing with the time of the end. So from Daniel 12:1 down to 12:4 that we're reading right now, this is all really dealing with the end of this age, where Jacob's trouble is gonna take place. You're gonna have the elect get delivered. You're gonna have the wicked Israelites get destroyed, but they're gonna come back in the kingdom and they're gonna experience that shame and contempt. Then it talks about how you're gonna have the elect that follow the ways of the Lord and taught it correctly, how they're gonna be raised up. And now it talks here in verse 4 about, it says, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Now, when you look into the word here, run to and fro, it takes us to the word shawat. Now it says here to go or rove about, to go to and fro eagerly or quickly to and fro, which is really dealing with travel, right? As you can see, even in the Strong's definition here, it says to travel, to go about to and fro. And when you compare travel from the ancient world to now, it is obviously drastically improved, right? Places that would take you days, weeks, months to get to, now it takes you hours or even minutes, because the means of transportation has advanced. And that also came by way of an increase in knowledge in all aspects, knowledge in the scriptures, the understanding of the word of the Lord, because we have more understanding of the words of the Lord now than the prophets of old did. Because the Lord dealt with the prophets, which, I mean, it's really us coming back, but they were given visions, right? They saw certain things that were going to happen, but they did not always understand what they saw. And on top of that, Jeremiah, for example, only had information from his time and those that came before him in their writings. But we in this time, with the blessing of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai through the Holy Spirit, we have all the writings that are necessary to understand history, prophecy, laws, all of them. And the Lord has opened up our minds to actually understand all of those visions and dreams and stuff that the men of old saw, or they saw. So we don't need to. Why do you think the Lord isn't giving us these kinds of visions that you read about in Daniel or Jeremiah or Isaiah? Because those visions are pertaining to this time. So our job now is to come and explain those things and link them to prophecy, link them to what's happening in real life, and give the warning. Okay, but at the same time, knowledge is increased in different aspects, in different avenues. Look at technology, for example. We've come back, right? The thing that we're doing now, which is prophesying and teaching the word of the Lord, is the same thing that the prophets in the past did. But if you notice, we do it differently. The prophets in the past, they didn't have the ability to record a video or do a live stream, okay, and then do this and that and the third. No. But we do. We have the internet that allows you to transmit the information from one end of the earth to another. So you don't need to physically travel over there. In 2nd Esdras, I think it's the 6th chapter, it talks about how, what was it? Women are basically gonna give birth to untimely babies and they're gonna live. And that's through technology. In the ancient world, if you give birth to a premature baby, chances are that baby wasn't really gonna survive. In today's society, they have technology to allow that to happen. Okay. Verse 5. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. Because remember, going back to Daniel the 10th chapter, Daniel was by the river Hiddekel, today known as the Tigris. That's when the Lord came down and showed himself to Daniel and then started speaking with him, and then started to go into the vision of the last days, of the end times, or of things that would happen from in the future from Daniel's time. So the whole of Daniel chapter 11 going into Daniel 12, this is still Daniel being told the vision. That and now in verse 5, it gives a little context as to, okay, the Lord told him this was going to happen, this was going to happen, this was going to happen, and then, like he says, he looked, and then he saw two. He says there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man that was clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen. So it was an angel that was speaking to the man clothed in linen, which I believe this was also talking about the Lord, because that is how he was described in Daniel 10. Let's go to that, Daniel chapter 10. When Daniel first saw him, this is Daniel chapter 10, verse 4. And in the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel. That's the same river he's talking about in Daniel 12 and 5, because he hasn't moved yet. It's been a couple of chapters for us, but it's still the same day and the same event for Daniel. So, continuing, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. So Daniel describes this man, which we know is the Lord, it's Yahushai, but he doesn't describe anybody else from Daniel 10 all the way to 12 as a man wearing linen. There's only one individual he has described like that so far. So when you come to Daniel 12, when he says, and one said to the man clothed in linen, he's referring to the same one he was referring to in Daniel 10, which is the Lord, which was upon the waters of the river. How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and an half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So now in verse 7, this is talking about a different time period, because when he makes mention of that time, times, and a half, that time period adds up to 350 years. The time here is a representation of 100 years. Times is 100 times 2. And half is half of a time, which is 50. So you have 100, 200, and 50. And that adds up to 350. Now, I think the last time I looked into the word time, let's see what it says here. Oh, what did they tell us? Mawa'id, appointed time. Yeah, it says a fixed time, specifically festival, convention, a year by implication. So they don't really give us too much in here, which kind of makes sense because this is prophetic. So, I don't expect them in a blue letter to be able to break that down for you. But anyway, when the Lord here refers to the time, times, and half a time, that's that famous 350-year period that is also referenced in other scriptures, right? In Daniel, the 7th chapter is referenced in Revelation, the 11th chapter is referenced in there, and this time period is mainly talking about the time of us being under hardcore captivity under Esau Edom, from around around 1619-ish to about 1960s, 70s. Okay, from then the Lord started to have mercy, and then he started to revive that spirit within us, okay, of the actual truth. Going back to the elders, our elders and their elders, Elder Abba Bivens and so on and so forth. So This time period here is talking about that time of slavery, you could say. And that's why it says, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. So and that's when our punishment is going to be at an end. And that's when all these things are going to be finished. Okay, because that's going to conclude. We went into hardcore slavery. The Lord brought us out of that. Obviously, we're still under captivity now, but it's not as bad as it was then. So that time was a significant time in history. But after that, the things that we read up above, Jacob's trouble and so on and so forth, that's all going to be to conclude our punishment. And that's going to be at the ending of the visions that are pertaining to the end days concerning us. Verse 8, and I heard, but I understood not. So he heard the angel ask the Lord gave him the reply, but he didn't understand what he was talking about. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. So Daniel had context. If you're reading in the book of Daniel, the things that I'm mentioning here, these are things that he was told or he witnessed. But in terms of understanding, he didn't understand it. And when he asked about it, the Lord told him, go, because it's not time for you to understand this yet. This is sealed until the time of the end. So guess what? The fact that we are now explaining it and breaking it down means that it is not sealed anymore, which also means that we are in the time of the end. Verse 10, many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Now the many shall be purified is talking about the elect, because in this time, we were all in the world at some point, doing wicked things, but we were purified through the word of the Lord by hearing it being taught and preached, and the Lord supping with us. We turned, our mind got renewed, and we turned from those wicked ways and made white, meaning made pure. Now, this doesn't mean that we're physically perfect, but in spirit, as the scriptures say, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And there's a precept that refers to the elect as those in whose spirit there is no guile. So they're made white, they're made pure. It says, and tried, which, let's get a couple of precepts on that. Let's see. I think, is it? Bring the third part. Yeah, Zechariah 13, and also we can get Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3. So Zechariah 13 and 9, let's actually go up, verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, because we're being tried now. Okay, and through that, we're also being purified through this word. That way, and Lord willing, if we be of the elect, we don't have to go through the physical purification by the physical fire, i.e. the second death. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off. Now, all the land, this land is talking about the land of America or Babylon. So the parts here are referring in context to America. So 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die. This is talking about, of all the Israelites here in this land, 2 parts of them, meaning 2/3 of all the Israelites here in America shall be cut off and die. But the third shall be left therein, which is the elect, the 1/3. And they are going to be preserved. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold is tried. And this is how they're going to be made pure. And they shall call upon my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai is my God. So going back to Daniel 12, many shall be purified and made white and tried. That's the elect. Another precept for that is Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3. Here we go. Chapter 3, verse 4. For though they be punished in the sight of men, this is getting to the point, but this is, I'm going to actually start at 1 and jump down so you get the context. But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and there shall no torment touch them. Jumping down. For though they be punished, so now you know who the they is, in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, because also through that chastisement, which are the adversities that we go through in this ministry, we're being made pure. Your minds are being made better. They shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. As gold in the furnace hath he tried them, and received them as a burnt offering. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine. Remember we read in Daniel 12? We're going to go back to it. And run to and fro like sparks amongst the stubble. So remember when we read up above, it said here, right, in verse 3, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Okay, so now coming back down to Daniel 12 and 10, and many shall be purified and made white and tried. So we understand this is talking about the elect. And this is by the word of the Lord, right? But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Which we know that ultimately the wicked is Esau, Edom. But in this time, while the elect are being made purified and tried, of course you have the Edomites and these other nations, but primarily the Edomites that are continuing on in their wickedness. But guess what? Who's also doing wickedness? The wicked of our people. Okay. Now we know Esau is bound not to get this, but even you have our people as they were referred to as their father the devil. I forget exactly how it's worded. Ye are of your father the devil. There you go. So guess what? This can also apply to them, because they're also doing wickedness, and they're not understanding this. But the wise, which are the elect in this time, shall understand. Understand what? Understand the gospel. Understand the word of the Lord. What is required of the Lord? Number one, the understanding of these scriptures, the understanding of prophecies, and the things needed to do for salvation. And there's this precept that says, their scourges sent for amendment, yet for all these they shall not turn from their wicked ways. I believe that's in 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. Now in verse 11, and from the time, so now in verse 11, this is also talking about a different time period. So if we go back up and we look at Daniel 12 and 1 is talking about the time of Jacob's trouble. 12 and 2 is a continuation of that, right? So the ending of Jacob's trouble, you're going to have these events take place leading up into the kingdom. Verse 3, which, is pretty much that also around that same time, because this is the time when the elect are going to be made bright and so on and so forth. Okay, and then obviously verse 4, also when the time of knowledge is increased, that's talking about this time. And then as you go down in verse 7, it jumps and it talks about the time period of slavery, right? That times and a half. But remember that to Daniel, all these things are still in the future. For us now, some of them have already happened, i.e. the 7th verse, dealing with that times and a half, that 350-year period. But to Daniel, none of it had happened yet. So this was all things that were concerning the future to him. And then when you come on down to verse 10, it goes back to talking about the last days, right, which is in the time that we're in now. But when you get to verse 11 and 12, this is now talking about the time of 70 AD, right? Really from 66 to about 73 AD. So Daniel 12 and 11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. Now you may think that this is talking about the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, but it's not. This is actually talking about the time period of the siege of Jerusalem from about 66 to 73 AD. When you go to Daniel, the 8th chapter, Daniel already speaks about the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. But remember, the abomination and desolation, that's not only spoken of when it's concerning Antiochus. When you go to Daniel, the 9th chapter, it's also spoken of there. And in Matthew 24, the Lord also makes reference to that. So Daniel 12 and 11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Now, this 1,290 days goes up to about 3.5 years. So this is from the time period of 66 AD to right around 70 AD. Because from about 66 AD to 70 AD, this was when Jake started revolting because of the provocation of the Romans, and Nero had sent this man Vespasian, who was a general at the time, to go and put down that revolt, which this is what led up to the siege of Jerusalem. So from that time, from 66 to 70, because at 70 is when the siege of Jerusalem had started, basically, like that's that middle point. Okay. And it says, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 days. So basically 1,335 days, which when you look that up, I did the conversion here, that's roughly about another 3.5 years, which puts us right about 7 years. Okay, so in Daniel 12 and 11, it's talking about the first half from 66 to 70, and Daniel 12 and 12 is talking about the second half, because that was the ending of that siege. Okay, right around 73 AD. And it said they were blessed because this was a very atrocious and terrible time to be living through while it was taking place. Okay, so that time when the dailies, because this is what happened, right? During that siege of Jerusalem, the daily sacrifice, it was taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate was when the Romans came in and they destroyed Jerusalem, the temple and all, and they made it desolate. So now let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 15, and this is what the Lord was warning about. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. So you notice this isn't talking about it, the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, when they went and set up the destroyed messed up the temple and set up abominable things, pig and all that on the altar and so on and so forth. This is not talking about that. This is talking about another instance of an abomination of desolation that Daniel made reference to, or Daniel prophesied about. That's what the Lord was referring to here. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. And then he goes on and so forth and warns them that basically get out of here ASAP, because it's not going to be good. Now let's go to what the Lord is referring to in Daniel chapter 9 verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. The he here is talking about the Romans, and the many is talking about the Israelites. But specifically at this time, this was Nero, because he was the one, the Roman Caesar at this time. The 1 week represents 7 years. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So the midst of the week was 70 AD, because this week was from 66 to 73. Okay, that's 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73. 7 years. In the midst of the week, which was right about 70 AD. So whenever you look up the siege of Jerusalem, instantly you think about 70 AD, but it wasn't just a 1 year thing. This started from 66. Okay. So in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So from the beginning of the week to the midst of the week, that is Daniel 12 and 11. That 1,290 days, or that about 3.5 years. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. This is why it's referred to as the abomination of desolation. And what was he going to make desolate? Jerusalem, the temple, through that siege. Even until the consummation thereof, or even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate, because this was determined by the Lord to happen, and he was going to carry it out by the hand of the Romans. So even when you look up something like this, the Ark of Titus, and let's see what they tell us. Here we go. I just want some. Oh boy. Okay, here we go. Ark of Titus. The Ark of Titus is a 1st century AD honorific ark located on the Via Sacra, Rome. Okay, that's by Emperor Domitian shortly after the death of his older brother, to commemorate Titus's official deification, because that's what they used to do. They used to deify themselves, or consecratio, and the victory of Titus together with their father Vespasian over the Jewish rebellion in Judea. The ark contains panels depicting the triumphal procession celebrated in 71 AD after the Roman victory culminating in the fall of Jerusalem, and provides one of the few contemporary depictions of artifacts from Herod's temple. And so on and so forth. Okay, so basically that's what the Ark of Titus was about, because they destroyed Jerusalem. Okay, they brought that down, and then followed suit to take down the last stronghold which we had, which was Masada. Okay, and you can read about that, the siege of Masada. This is why it lasted from 66, and it didn't stop at 70, but went all the way to 73, because they went and took down Masada as well. So now coming back to Daniel chapter 12, verse 11 and 12 is talking about that time of 66 to 70 AD. And finishing off in verse 13, but go thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. So Daniel was given the vision, he was given the breakdown of it, the different things. And remember, from Daniel's time period when he is receiving this message, these were all different events that would take place in the future, and that would happen to us, the Israelites. But they weren't made 100% clear to Daniel, because some parts were meant for us now in this time to break down and to explain. And that's why Daniel was told to go his way till the end be, for thou shalt rest, meaning he was going to die at some point, obviously, and stand in thy lot. And what was Daniel's lot? He was a prophet. In the end of the days, which means that Daniel would come back again, which also proves reincarnation. So guess what? Daniel is back again, because we're in the end of the days, and he's doing the same thing that the rest of the prophets are doing. He's prophesying. And that's pretty much the end of Daniel, the 12th chapter, and also end of the books of Daniel. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha, Kudash. Until next time, Shalom.